Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wellness North Counseling. My name is Aditi, and today I'm going to talk about how to ground and connect with our body. Sometimes, when we are disconnected from our bodies, that can cause psychosomatic symptoms. And being a somatic practitioner, connection with the body, I think, is really close to my heart. I've been practicing mindfulness and I'm a certified yoga instructor for almost a decade now. And that's why I would like to talk about how to ground and connect with our body and give you some practical tips. So, why connecting with body is important? Well, our physical health and our emotional health are very closely connected. And there is a strong mind body connection, which means that our chemistry and biology impact our mood and emotions, as well as our thoughts and beliefs. So, whatever you're thinking will have a certain emotional impact on you, and that emotion will create certain physiological impact. And with all of these factors combined, they play a major role in influencing our stress and our physical health. So, if you're in a good physical health, that might affect your mood. You might feel great. And if you feel great, you might feel as if you can take over the world. The world is your oyster. So, very strong connection between our mind and body. And what's the impact of this connection? So, the impact is that your body responds to the way you think, feel, and act. This is one type of mind body connection. For example, when you're stressed or you're anxious or you're upset, your body will have a certain kind of physiological response. For example, you might develop high blood pressure or a stomach ulcer after a particularly stressful event, such as death of a loved one. It's really sad, but unfortunately, that's how closely mind and body are connected. So when we have a lot of stress hormones in the body, there is production of cortisol, stress hormones, and that affects us in many ways physically. And what's a balanced body? So in a balanced body, there is flow of energy and emotions are all feel good hormones are there. Emotions are very upbeat. You feel happy, joyful, you feel at peace, you can tap into your creativity, curiosity. So it's almost like I feel good physically and I can handle whatever life throws my way. I also want to talk about our sympathetic and parasympathetic state. So, sympathetic state is let's get going. It's our alert state. For example, if you're driving on a highway, you definitely want to be in this sympathetic state. And being in a sympathetic mode is not always bad. What happens is that if we don't get out of this sympathetic mode and connect with our parasympathetic state, then we get stuck in this tired but wired kind of response. So, sympathetic state is required. It can be in different modes, different blends, or different flavors. It could feel like there is inner thunderstorm, internal conflict, which is okay as long as we can resolve that inner conflict, as long as we feel that we are prepared and we can handle this thunderstorm. However, if we are depleted, there is no self care or cup is empty, then this thunderstorm can feel like a tsunami. It can feel really, really overwhelming. Our parasympathetic, on the other hand, is our rest and digest state where our body heals. We can get into our ventral vagal system, which is where there is sense of comfort and ease, sense of well-being inside of us. So if you have a good night's sleep and you wake up feeling refreshed, that is your ventral vagal. If your mood is great, that's your ventral vagal. When you're socially engaging with other people, that could be your ventral vagal, as opposed to, you've been working very hard all day. Now at 3, 4, 5 o'clock, you feel drained and exhausted. Then you're going into your dorsal vagal state. So, what happens when there is a lot of stress hormones accumulated in our body? So, long term effect of stress hormones is that our immune system feels weakened, which makes it easy for external toxic substances to impact our body. It slows down the healing process. There could be digestive problems, and it can definitely cause insomnia. All right, so for a moment, let's do a little bit of an experiential exercise. Take a moment and reflect on thoughts that are going through your head right now. Hopefully thoughts are not, this is overwhelming, this is too much. Hopefully thoughts are, this is useful, this is informational. So check in and see what's the thought. Is the thought I'm tired, exhausted? Is the thought like, wow, bring on this amazing nuance, neuroscience-based stuff? So what is the thought? And once we have identified the thought, check in and see what's the feeling. Do you feel like open, energized, compassionate, happy, sad, tired, exhausted, overwhelmed? So just notice what was the thought and what's the feeling that's associated with the thought. And then notice what is going on in the body. So that is our top-down approach, where we identify the thought, then we notice our emotion, and then we see how it impacts our physical body. The other approach where healing can happen is our bottom up. What is happening in the body? What's the emotion associated with it? And then what is going on through my head? So let's go bottom up. Let's do a quick body scan exercise. Wherever you are, get a little bit more settled, a little bit more comfortable. See if you can sense your toes. Notice your ankles, your heels. Bring your awareness to your calves, your knees, your hamstrings. Notice your belly. Notice your shoulders, your jaw, that space between your eyes. And see if you can start to relax these regions. So as you start to relax the body, notice what is the emotion, what's the feeling. And now that you have identified the feeling, what's the thought? So very interesting to observe what happens within us, connecting with our inner landscape. But let's continue to move on. So there is a big concept going around that says that our body and the earth, it's all interconnected. We are all one. So we are extension of Mother Earth in a way, which is very interesting in some ways, because when we connect with nature, it can be very grounding, very comforting, very soothing. But for a moment, let's connect with our senses. So I want to talk about our sense of sight. Let's take a little bit of a break. So if you are staring on the screen, maybe close your eyes, maybe look towards corner of the room and notice the impact on your sense of sight. Observe any sounds that you might be able to recognize in your environment. Connecting with our sense of touch. Notice how the clothes on your body feel. How's the connection between your body and the ground? Maybe your feet are touching the floor. Maybe you're sitting on a chair. Notice that connection, that touch. Notice if there is any lingering tastes in your mouth. And then bring your attention, your awareness to your sense of smell. And I invite you to do this practice by going out in the nature and notice the impact on your body of this sensory break, sensory connection with Mother Earth. It could be really nourishing to seek support and love from ground beneath us, and perhaps reminding ourselves that universe has our back. So basically, our sensory receptors give us that sense of connection. So if you're feeling isolated, just connecting with Mother Nature could be very comforting and soothing. So what happens is when our senses are cut off, we feel we are at a disadvantage. So we definitely want to use our senses to our advantage. There has been some experimentation on nightmares. And if you have experienced that, you get up in the middle of the night, you were having a bad dream, Ground yourself by touching the ground beneath you, perhaps giving yourself a little hug, perhaps tapping into these senses to comfort and calm yourself. This connection with our senses, with the nature, is also useful if we feel we are dissociating or if we are experiencing some emotional overwhelm. So how do we build our toolkit? Connecting with our five senses is one of the ways we can have a sensory toolkit ready. So we use our sense of sight by building the tools that are visually appealing to us. Perhaps you like looking at trees. Perhaps you like going to the river and looking at the flow of water, perhaps waterfall, perhaps looking at the mountain, or maybe you find some comfort in certain pictures in your house, in your physical environment. So tap into that sense of sight and ask yourself, what gives you that comfort and ease when you tap into this sense? Again, when we think of auditory sense, our comfort and toolkit could be when we are overwhelmed, listening to something that is calming and soothing. Listening to birds chirp could be great. Listening to rustling of the wind, movement of the leaves could be comforting, or sometimes just the silence. Same with sense of touch. Having some tools in our kits that are very comforting when we think of the touch, like slime has been really popular in last few years. Children really love it, that tactile touch. You might find comfort in holding your favorite blanket or a soft toy. Certain things just give us that sense of comfort. So think of your sense of touch and what gives you comfort. Perhaps some of us have aversion to certain kind of clothing or some kind of attachment with certain kind of clothing. I remember once I was working with a client who only wore his 3 t-shirts because they were so familiar, so comfort in wearing the same outfit again and again and again, almost like a uniform, because there was a sense of this is familiar. My system recognizes this and my system says it's okay to wear this. My threat levels are down when I'm wearing the same t-shirt again and again and again. So sense of taste, take a moment to recognize what are certain tastes that you find really comforting. A lot of people will find taste of chocolate good, or apple pie. So what is your sense of comfort when it comes to sense of our taste? And smells. Lavender has proven to be really helpful for a lot of folks. Coffee smell could be very energizing. So you're tapping into your senses to build a toolkit of things that you find comforting and soothing and perhaps even energizing when you are in that dorsal vagal state, when you're feeling numb, dissociated, you're almost in a fog, confused perhaps. Having energizing sensory toolkit could be really helpful in those cases. All right. So how do we release stress? So when there is buildup of stress hormones, when we feel overwhelmed, coming back to our breath. And I would recommend practicing deep breathing when you're not stressed, so that that neural pathway is strong enough that when you do feel overwhelmed, you can tap into deep breathing. It's like you're learning a math formula and you want to make sure that you know this formula well enough that when you're in the math test, you can implement this formula. And more you practice makes everything perfect. So think about consistency and practice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is another great technique that we use for grounding. It helps us in reducing sense of overwhelm. So recognize 5 things that you can see around you, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So we use our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique to become more present in this moment, as opposed to going in the future and being anxious, or thinking about the past and being depressed. Progressive muscle relaxation is another technique where we engage, squeeze the muscles, and then we slowly release them. And then butterfly hugs, where we literally give ourselves a little hug and we do bilateral stimulation, tapping ourselves, comforting ourselves. For example, if a child is crying and you will soothe them, you will hold them. Same way, you are giving yourself little butterfly hugs, soothing and comforting yourself. All right, let's do a short seated movement practice. It helps us get a little bit more physical connection with the body. So maybe take your arms up in the air, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, invite a little movement in your wrists, circles perhaps clockwise and counterclockwise. Perhaps we can place fingertips on our shoulders and we can move our shoulders in circles. You can also, maybe a little bit of a homework, you can put on some music and dance or go for a walk. These are tiny little things that we can do to invite movement in our body. And when we are moving, we are getting into our flow state. There is movement of energy, life force, chi, prana. So what is mindfulness? What is awareness? So mindful awareness is a practice of focused awareness. It's a mind-body technique that can mitigate the effects of stress on our bodies by bringing sense of calm to our bodies, by calming our minds. So we really work on becoming present, recognizing what is going inside. And how does this help us? It helps in easing pain and decreasing muscle tension, because we are not only aware of what's not working within us, but also places in our body that feel open, less congested, where there is flow of energy. It improves the metabolism and assists in weight loss. It reduces the perception of stress and anxiety, and it improves focus, concentration, and clarity. And there have been so many studies, folks, that show that mindfulness can really improve the quality of our neuropathways. It improves the hippocampus. It increases self-awareness, self-acceptance. Perhaps we can build a little bit more self-compassion by practicing mindfulness. And it also benefits our lungs and heart. It slows our respiratory rate and it lowers our blood pressure. It benefits the immune system, so you stay healthy, and it slows down the aging process. And mindfulness doesn't have to be a big deal where you're sitting and meditating for hours and hours. It's just about being present in this moment rather than thinking about future or going in the past. So what is going on for you right now? Where is your attention right now? Because wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. And more we practice mindfulness, even for a few seconds, more grounded we will start to feel and more benefits we can deliver to our body. So some of the simple practices, maybe you can place your hand on your belly and observe the rise and fall of your belly. Perhaps you can count your breaths. So see how long you take to inhale and how long do you take to exhale. When you're eating something, be very mindful of the taste. So all your attention, your energy is on the taste. I'm just going to have a sip of water, and all my attention for a moment will be on how the water tastes. You can also practice mindfulness based on certain phrases. For example, as you inhale, perhaps you can tell yourself, inhale love. And as you are exhaling, you're releasing the stress and tension, softening the body, inviting sense of calm and ease. Let's try again. Deep breath, inhale love, and exhale stress. Relax those shoulders and slow down your breathing. Automatically, when your breath is slow, you are in your parasympathetic mode as opposed to sympathetic system. Continuing on, rain technique is another way that you can practice mindfulness, where you will take a moment to recognize what is going on for you in the present moment. You'll acknowledge the emotions. You will acknowledge the cues you're receiving from your physical body. Then we investigate what is happening with these emotions. Where are they coming from? What are they trying to tell us? If body is giving us certain signals, pain signals, or signal of comfort, I'm safe, we investigate it. We become curious about it. We try to recognize, acknowledge, and investigate. Then we nourish ourselves with a deep breath. We accept what is. And we also nourish our soul through gratitude, compassion, prayer, and other things that are meaningful for you. To conclude, guys, remember that each individual will approach the path to wellness a bit differently, but it starts with getting in touch with our own mind and body in a very kind, compassionate, meaningful way. Finding kindness in our heart, not just for others, but also for ourselves. Inviting self-compassion into our lives and treating our bodies with so much love and respect, and finding gratitude in our hearts for what our body does for us every day. So take a moment and acknowledge the body for what it does for you. Perhaps you can be thankful for your limbs. If you are able-bodied, perhaps we can be thankful for the presence of breath. And as we continue to practice gratitude, we can start to find happiness, because they say a heart filled with gratitude is a happy heart. Thank you so much for watching this presentation, guys. Hopefully you picked some tidbits that you can use in your own well-being journey. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to connect with our clinic, Wellness North Counseling. You can send me a message and I will be happy to respond to your queries. Have a fantastic rest of your evening.